Hi, it's Nell, and today I am going to be talking about one of my very favorite houseplants. Now, I have lots of houseplants I love, but in terms of care, this one is really easy. I love this one, and I love snake plants, so many great varieties, and I also love the ZZ plant. So, today, those are my three favorites anyway, but the plant to which I am referring, or of which I am referring, I don't mean to be rude, is the Ficus Elastica, or the rubber tree, or the rubber plant. This variety just happens to be Ficus Elastica decora. So stick around because I'm going to tell you all about how to grow it and care for it. It's a beauty. You might have heard ficus and gone, nah, 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 but this is the easiest of the ficus trifecta to maintain and keep alive. It's a snap, actually, I think. But the Ficus benjamina, the weeping fig, as I say, it will drop leaves if you look at it cross-eyed. And then there's the Ficus lyrata, or the fiddle leaf fig, which was very in and very trendy. I think it still is very popular. But that one people have a hard time with. But this one, I think, is the easiest of the three. And there are quite a few different Ficus elasticas, varieties of them. I had a beautiful one called Burgundy. It had darker leaves, almost like a blackish burgundy green, and the new growth, coming out. This part was very deep red, and it bit the dust. I went to San Diego for last June for 3 weeks to escape the heat here in Tucson, and there was an ant invasion in my house. So fortunately, friends and neighbors have keys, so I had to call an ecological exterminating company to come in and take care of the ants because they were so bad, crawling all over the place. And so the pest guy, Mr. Pest Man, discovered a few nests of ants in my gorgeous Ficus elastica, so he drenched it and treated it, and then it got put outside. And now in Tucson, in mid-June, I think this was like the third week of June, we had the hottest June on record. It was like 110, 112, 114. My poor ficus fried. It made me very sad. But I didn't mourn too long. So this past November, I decided to go out and get myself another Ficus elastica. So varieties that I know of besides decora are Robusta, my old one, which was the Burgundy. There is one called Black Prince. Let's see what else. Variegata has some nice cream in its leaves. And then there's one called Ruby, which has pink. And I believe there's a dwarf 1 or 2, and there are probably some other varieties too, but those are the ones that I've seen. So you have some choices. I'm going to start out with size. This one here is about 3 to 4 feet. It's in a 10-inch pot. The smallest I've ever seen one is in a, have I seen one in a 4-inch pot? No, I've seen them in 6-inch pots. So this is definitely a floor plant. And I'm trying to remember, the tallest I've ever seen one in a home or office is about 12 feet tall. When I was in the interior scape trade, we put some in a hotel, and they were probably more like 15 feet, but that's a specimen plant. But in nature, because these grow in nature, of course, that's where they come from, and in their native environment, I should say, not nature, they grow to be about 60 to 80 feet tall. So it truly is a large tree. And in terms of growth rate, I have found them to grow relatively fast to fast. Not growing so much now because it is the winter time, but once it starts to warm up, they really take off and grow. In terms of exposure, this is definitely a medium to highlight plant. It will actually do better in higher light. This is not a low light plant. If you have it in lower light, it isn't going to be so easy and it isn't going to look good. So you want it in as much light as you can give it, really strong, or I should say really bright, natural light, but no direct, strong sunlight for a prolonged period because it will burn. I learned that the hard way. And in terms of watering, like any house plant, it depends on the size pot it's in, and if your house is warmer or cooler, there's a lot of factors that go along with it. If there's moss on the top as a top dressing. I've done a post and a video on houseplant watering 101 that you might want to check out. The link to that will be down below too. But I water mine about every 7 days in the warmer months. But I am warm here. Don't forget I'm in Tucson. And in the wintertime, I'm probably watering it every 10 to 14 days. But mine is in an east exposure, but there are 3 windows. So it gets a lot of light, and we get a lot of sunshine year long here in the Arizona desert. So you're just going to have to adjust it accordingly. In the winter, you might want to back off to once every 14 to 16 days. But just check first and see if your plant is drying out, because you don't want it to go completely dry, but you don't want it to stay sopping wet either. We'll look at this gorgeous foliage close up for a while. You'll see how beautiful and glossy the new leaves are. But now we're going to move on to temperature. As I always say with houseplants, if your home is comfortable for you, it's going to be comfortable for your houseplants also. And in terms of fertilizer, what I do is I do worm castings and compost in the spring, just once a year. But if you're not into that, you can just use a balanced liquid organic houseplant fertilizer. Will do just fine, and you can water that in the spring also. There, I think you can see the whole plant a little bit better now. There was a late afternoon sun glare on the patio table, and it was hard to get the whole thing in there. But anyway, moving on to soil. Oh, and the cactus behind it to the right is a fence post cactus. I love it. It is about probably, oh my gosh, I just looked up and noticed it's about to flower. It's about probably 15 or 20 feet tall. Oops, I digress. Because that's what plants do to me. Soil. So you want a good organic potting soil. Anything that drains really well, but that is really rich too, that has been enriched with some good stuff, and just make sure that it is formulated for houseplants in this potting soil. The brand that I am currently using and I like is Happy Frog. Propagation, the fun part. I love to propagate plants. I was going to show you air layering on my Ficus Elastica burgundy because it was really starting to spread a lot. It was, starting to take up a little bit too much real estate in my dining room, but I couldn't. So anyway, air layering is a really great way to propagate this plant, but it takes about at least 2 months to do that until the roots are truly formed. The other way that you can propagate it is from softwood cuttings, which is this part here, the tip here. And you can propagate that in a mix. And I'm going to be repotting this plant soon, so I'm going to do a separate video on repotting in a couple of months so you can see that. Now, pests. As I say, if you have plants, you can assume they are going to get some type of pest at some time. And this one I've seen it get infested with scale and mealybug and also spider mite. And I have done videos and posts on all those and what you can do about them, so I will leave the link to those down below. Now on to something that sounds just like pests, and that's pets. Ooh, it's hard to get the differentiation in those two words. Like I'm talking about cats and dogs. And this plant does submit a sap. It's why it's called the rubber plant. It's like, I think it's used as a latex substitute, I believe. Anyway, it does emit this sap, and it comes out full flowing, believe me. So it can be irritating to us too, so just, watch that. But it is irritating to cats and dogs, especially if it gets on their skin or if they do ingest it. So just be aware of that. My cats don't pay any attention to my plants, so I don't have to worry about that at all. Ooh, I had to get up off my ankles on the tile floor. But most houseplants are toxic in some way to pets. And actually, I did a post and a video on ones that are safe for them. If you are interested in that, the link will be down below. Boy, the description box is going to be full. And just my thoughts on toxicity and pets. So I will leave more information in the blog post on this plant, as I always do. But there are just a few things that are good to know. Is that the roots come out of the pot. It's just how this plant grows. I will zoom in and show you that. Also, if you over fertilize, it can get salt burn on the edges, and it looks like the edges of the leaves are burned. And what else? Oh yes, the sap I was talking about. So if you are propagating it or doing any pruning, just be careful. It does not irritate me, but it could irritate you. And definitely be sure to keep it away from your face. And now this is something that I really need to do to this plant, so I want to just pass it on to you, is that it's really good to keep the leaves clean because it looks so nice with the leaves clean. So what I do is I just take a moist lint-free cloth and I wipe off each leaf, and I do that about once or twice a year. So see right there, when ficuses are growing outdoors, they grow these really large, outrageous roots, and they get some of these aerial roots too. And these are pretty much dried up. So if they bother you, you can cut them off. I just leave them because they don't bother me. But that is what that is. So don't be concerned about that and think, oh my God, there's something wrong with the roots. It's just fine. It's how the plant grows. I hope you give this fabulous plant a try. Oh, and another advantage of this plant is that it's not very expensive at all. I think this one was $19. So not bad at all. And that's because they do grow fast. Plants that grow slower tend to be more expensive. That makes sense, right? I hope you have found this video about the Ficus Elastica, or the rubber tree, to be helpful. I love this plant. It's A-okay in my book. I thank you for all your likes and your subscribes. I really appreciate them. And I have a lot more videos coming your way. So many videos. If only I could do YouTube full-time, then I could do them all. Anyway, let's get out in the garden and make the world a more beautiful place, or into our indoor gardens. And I thank you for all your likes and your subscribes. I really appreciate them. And I also thank you for watching this video. And I will catch you in the next one. So have a good one and goodbye.